Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we have reached WW2, and John Ford has gone off to war and has made a bunch of World War II films. And joining me for a couple of weeks will be my buddy Jim from the Movie Club. Jim, thank you so much for coming on.
Hello, Internet.
Absolutely. And the internet welcomes you, Jim. And we will be talking about the Battle of Midway, which is a documentary short film. But for those who have not tuned into the show before, we have three segments. We have coming attractions for Friday, May 3rd. We have our feature, The Battle of Midway, and some recommendations for you. So this weekend is interesting as we have we have a mix, big studio film, The Fall Guy, coming from David Leitch and Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. We have Johnny Depp making his return to the screens with Sean Dewberry and Hathaway on Amazon. We have some festival films coming out and what looks like a trashy horror film, Tarot, coming out as well. But Jim, what stands out to you?
I saw the TV Glow, which I believe is the second feature from director Jane Schoenbrunn, if I'm
Yep.
pronouncing that correctly. I had a whole conversation with my girlfriend at Sundance about this
Mhm.
director, and we looked up their debut movie, which was called Let's All Go to the World's Fair, I believe. Um, and I'm not, I hear they're weird.
Yes.
But I feel like I missed an opportunity to see this film at Sundance. So, of the releases this week, that one stands out to me because I missed my chance for.
I was really tempted to pick this one. I'm a big Bridget Lundy Payne fan who stars in this. She's from the show Atypical, and she also played Keanu Reeves' daughter in Ted and Bill and Ted Face the Music. And I think she's a really talented actor. And Justice Smith is growing on me. He's finally doing like stuff that isn't just stupid crap. But this and another film coming out this weekend in limited release, Evil Does Not Exist, from the director of Drive My Car. Those were both very tempting for me to pick. And then I had to go with like the shove popcorn in my face, fun looking action movie from David Leitch because like the Fall Guy just looks like so much fun. And I feel like I'm gonna have a blast with this. I'm a huge action movie fan, and David Leitch's films are not consistently great. They're all flawed, but like the action is so great in them. He co-directed the first John Wick film before him and Chad Stahelski went on their separate ways. Then he did Atomic Blonde. He did Hobbs and Shaw, the Fast and Furious Presents. He did Deadpool 2 and Bullet Train and has this. And this looks like an absolute blast. Ryan Gosling's riding high off of Barbie, Emily Blunt off of Oppenheimer. And this just looks like a fun, crazy, over the top action romance. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. Throwing it out there as well.
I was gonna say that you, as a Ryan Gosling fan, I feel like that should appeal. And Bullet Train was a pleasant surprise for me. I didn't
Yes.
think I'd enjoy it as much as I did, but I wasn't expecting much. I went into it pretty kind of.
And fun fact for those who don't know, David Leitch was Brad Pitt's stuntman, and Chad Stahelski was Keanu Reeves' stuntman. So that's why Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves have such a great relationship. Um,
That is a fun fact. I didn't know that.
and which is why Brad Pitt popped up randomly as the Vanisher in Deadpool 2, because he did that for David Leitch and then wound up starring in Bullet Train. Um, it's all in the family. Also, side note, there's been a lot of big re-releases this year. This past weekend, Alien and The Mummy both got re-released in theaters. This weekend is Star Wars Episode One: The Phantom Menace is getting a re-release because it's 25 years old.
Oh, wow. Is it really?
1999 was 25 years ago.
Woof. Oh man,
So
getting
I'm waiting for
getting
the
old.
Matrix one. Just that would be an amazing film to go check out in the theater for the first time. I did get to see Shrek 2 for the first time in theaters after missing it 20 years ago. So I was very happy about that. Because I can thank my aunt and my brother for me missing Shrek 2 the first time it came out in theaters. Um, because my brother wanted to see White Chicks,
Oh no.
and I
I feel
wanted to
like
see Shrek 2.
the only movie I really am upset that I missed in theaters was Avatar.
It was an experience. And I saw Avatar Way of Water in 3D for all 3 hours and 16 minutes of it on IMAX.
I did see that one because I figured that was like my second best
There you go.
Avatar experience was just to go see. And I chose that over The Whale, which I'm kind of glad I did because The Whale was depressing, let's be honest.
Yes, and as somebody who deals with weight problems, it hit way too close to home. But we won't unpack that trauma right now. We'll be talking about World War II instead, which is a lot less traumatic for me personally. Which we'll be talking about the documentary film here, The Battle of Midway. This did come out in 1942. Very minimal background that I'm going to deliver here. It is a montage of color pictures from the war. And they had some famous ass people do some of the narration on this, including Henry Fonda. I think Donald Crisp was also another pretty big name actor that had worked with John Ford at the time. But I guess, Jim, what were some of your general thoughts on the Battle of Midway?
Well, I'll pick up right where you left off. Jane Darwell, uh,
Mm,
I did not realize was Ma Jode from the Grapes of Wrath. So that came out 2 years before this.
so
Um, and so people were. Did you happen to see John Ford Goes to War, by the way?
I have not.
It gives some nice background to this. But initial thoughts were, wow, this is very propaganda-ish.
Yep. You
Considering,
mean you didn't get that vibe from when the announcer man came on and told you about the Great War effort?
well, I didn't realize that he was actually working for the propaganda department
Yeah.
of I guess that's under the War Department. I don't even know, but it was. I mean, it was unapologetically propaganda, right?
Yep.
The civilian voices I found really weird. Um, Soundtrack reminded me of there was a VHS I had when I was a kid of Warner Brothers cartoon propaganda, um,
Mm.
which I didn't know was propaganda at the time. So like those shots of the seagull natives that they keep going back to reminded me so much of those cartoons.
It's like,
Um,
let's take a look at some of our natives here on on the island of Midway, and it just shows a bunch of seagulls. I'm like, at least they're having some fun
Tojo
before
has
they start
promised
bombing
to
some shit.
free the natives, right?
Free the natives.
Free the natives. There's some unfriendly portrayal of the Japanese, but mostly the Japanese are just um, not portrayed. Like even the shots of the American gunners, um,
Mhm.
you don't you can barely even see the ships and the planes in the distance. It's really
Yeah.
a personal conflict. Um, so instead of that, what we get is names. I like that they use the names of a lot of service members, and
Mhm.
then they tried to kind of link it to the people back home, and especially the mothers. John Ford apparently said that he made this film for the mothers of the service members. Um, I'm not gonna go wild with praise for this, but like as far as firsthand footage, that's what I would find most valuable about this. And I
Mhm.
don't think it was over edited because um, it had to come out like right away, right? So as soon as they could splice all the footage
Yeah.
together, then then it had to be released to the public, I suppose. Um, Yeah, I'll pass it over to you. What was your first impression of wartime John Ford?
I'm trying to hold myself back from doing this completely in, that voice. Um,
John
coming,
Mulaney?
coming from you from the War Film Division. This is the Battle of Midway. Um, they sure didn't show the Japanese, but they sure had Japanese slurs in it, didn't they? Because
Yeah,
of
they had a
course,
few of those.
which like
Yep.
of course they were at that point. So it's like I'm not surprised, but just like it's just like it is what it is at this point. This is supposed to be a video vilifying the Japanese, so like there you go. Um,
But more
I
so
thought,
than that, it's supposed to be mythologizing our boys, right?
which specifically very patriotic music at the end, and boy, were there a lot of American flags towards the end of the film. But there's some really cool like sky shots at some points. Like that's the thing. There's some really impressive aerial shots that they had, specific explosions and stuff like that. Like they were showing them bombing ships and stuff like that. That's the thing. It's like real footage of the war happening. So, like you said, that's probably like the biggest thing you get out of this. And uh, the haunting shots of destruction. I put the narration is a bit self righteous, but that's exactly what it's supposed to be. So they did that. They had some funeral sequences. There's definitely like, and look at our boys coming off the planes as they had like a couple of like headshots of them like turning around with the cockpits and stuff like that, where it's like really trying to build up that like these are the boys and they're fighting for our country. And, you know, this is exactly what I expected it to be. So I guess it didn't disappoint in terms of like this is supposed to be a propaganda film. It's from the war film division. It's exactly what this is supposed to be. So there's obviously slant. It has a very specific message that it's supposed to be sending. And John Ford's a great filmmaker, so he sold it well.
He did, yeah, and I didn't realize that one of the things that I got from the other movie, John Ford Goes to War, is that he wanted to join the service before he became a director, and he was
Mm.
turned. They wouldn't accept him because of his eyesight, I think.
The big ass glasses
Yeah.
that he
So this was
has.
his way of participating and kind of on his own terms, I guess, really. Like he and the his team, I guess, they didn't have to follow the rules of the enlisted
Yep.
men, and uh, they were drinking and carousing as much as they liked. But apparently, this was this meant a lot to him because it was kind of um, vindication of that desire he had as a young man to join the military. So
Yep.
he is a pretty patriotic guy, I guess. My favorite line of that, I wish I could remember who said it. I can't attribute the quote, but it was that John Ford is the greatest purveyor of American mythology in our film history. So, you've been watching his movies one by one, slowly,
I wish he
sometimes.
was less of a purveyor of Confederate history in some of his movies, but like the mythos of the American West is was all built on the back of John Ford and John Wayne. So he accomplished a lot in terms of framing things. It's also interesting because like you would expect them to be chummy chummy, but apparently John Ford negged John Wayne a lot for trying to get out of fighting in World War II.
Ooh. Yeah, it's like that. In Peaky Blinders, they use that a lot, right? Like, even though this dude's a murderous gangster, he fought bravely in the war, so like he's got a trump card, you know?
Yep. Hey,
Um,
says Michael Corleone.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of John Wayne, but I did go recently to Monument Valley, and I visited John Ford Point and got to see. I didn't realize that Forrest Gump, the scene where he's running across the country and he decides to
Yep.
stop, that's in like the same area there.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
it's I don't like that John Wayne kind of became. You can debate this if you want, but it's almost like he just became a parody of John Wayne at a certain point, like the Duke,
It was
right?
the Duke. And that's the thing. And like he became such a big fixture of HUAC and all this, like, we're America. And yet got out of trying to fight for his country, which is one of the reasons why John Ford gave a whole bunch of shit for it.
Hmm.
It's the same
Yeah,
thing,
and I
like
mean,
not to get
maybe
political here,
maybe rightly so, maybe rightly so.
but like,
But there's
you
there's a
know,
lot of that bravado in this
well,
short film too.
it reminds me a lot of somebody right now who's propped up as a great American patriot who certainly got his ass out of going to war fighting for his country, but people plaster his face all over Rambo and shit. But that's
Who
all I'll
shall not
say
be
about
named.
that. It's
Yeah, so
just
that was my overall impression was that it was very the patriotism was a little bit forced, but again, this is I mean 80 plus years later now that I'm watching
mhm,
this with I mean Vietnam is behind us and Afghanistan is behind us and Iraq is behind us.
yeah.
So like I uh, would have a hard time to try to see this through the eyes of 1942.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's there's been quite a few wars in our country at this point that kind of dissolved that level of patriotism in terms of supporting like the war effort at this point, and it's just a different time. And why these are all such interesting time capsules we're going to have, and we have a couple more because next week we're going to be talking about Torpedo Squadron. So we'll be talking about that. But before we wrap up this episode of Welcome to the Wasteland, I always like to leave people with some recommendations. So, Jim, what would you like to recommend everybody?
I know I always do this. I cheat. So John Ford Goes to War, if you are interested in that. But as a broader historical suggestion with a lot of primary source material, there's a documentary from the 70s called The World at War, and it's all on YouTube right now. It's really long, it's
Mm,
exhaustive, but like if you're a history buff, I'm pretty sure that a lot of that like World War II in color footage was taken from this documentary.
mm.
But it's highly lauded and it's going to be really good as soon as I can, work up the courage to start this week long
Journey.
documentary on YouTube. Yeah, exactly. How about you, Shane? What's your suggestion this
So we
week?
always got. It's been 2 weeks since I recorded one of these, so God, I've watched a lot of stuff. So I definitely do have my three basic recommendations. So out of new films, I want to go something weird and different. I could easily gush on Challengers that I just watched this weekend, which is now my number one film of 2024 at this point. But
Hmm.
Sasquatch Sunset. This is
Did
a
you like
weird.
it?
It's such a weird ass. Well, and you know what's funny? I'm so used to calling this a weird ass movie, but I didn't find it that weird. And I think that says more about how many movies that I watched than most people. But like everybody's like, it's so strange. I'm like, it's not that crazy of an idea. It's just like, what if you just followed Sasquatch around and
Yeah,
they
it's
live
like
their
it's a
lives
faux
for
documentary, right? By
yeah,
Jesse
and
Eisenberg.
it's I thought like Riley Keough and Jesse Eisenberg did an amazing job, especially like decked out in these full Sasquatch costumes. No dialogue. And there's moments where I'm like, oh, if that happens, I was gonna get like really upset. Like it really brings you in there. Obviously, this is not gonna be for everybody. If you go tell like, I don't know, your cousin who likes Fast and Furious and shit, and be like, hey, you want to go watch this 90-minute film about Sasquatch that don't talk and we just follow them around in the woods for a year? They'd probably be like, shit. But no, it's not
The
shit.
people I talked to at Sundance were the reviews were overwhelmingly negative from the people I talked to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was such a like it's crass. There's a lot of like poop throwing and farts and like stuff living in the woods, kind of stuff. And it's just such a committed it's a film so committed to its bit. And it was such an interesting watch. Um One film off my watch list that I watched for the first time. This is kind of like a double recommendation between The Wages of Fear and its remake Sorcerer from William Friedkin. And this film focuses on a group of men who are trying to drive like nitroglycerin out into the jungle to a site where there's like a fire happening and they're trying to like blow out the like fire and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And it is thrilling. The original film, which is like this black and white 1950s French film, I love the two leads. I'm so hooked following the two of them through this jungle. And then William Friedkin's version, Sorcerer, is so freaking intense from
Hmm.
start to finish. And it's just like white knuckling it. Roy Scheider's in it. Love Roy Scheider. And it's also incredible visual feast to just look at on screen.
Would you
So
say it's more of like a Mad Max Fury Road or more of an Uncut Gems White Knuckle?
kind of probably uncut gems because it's heightening tension. It's not like nonstop action. It's one of
Right.
those things where it's like, here's a setup, and I'm like, my God, what's gonna happen? Kind of thing. And then like sprinkled throughout the whole film. One of the reasons why I got turned on to this was because there's a remake on Netflix that came out this year that's trash. And I hated it. I thought it was so boring. And then a whole bunch of people in the comments were like, "You got to watch the original Wages of Fear," and I didn't realize it was a remake. And
Hmm.
then my buddy Rowan has been singing the praises of Sorcerer ever since he saw it last year. So I'm like, I'm going to be talking about both of them for my Wasteland retrospective show with my buddy Luke coming up, and it both of them delivered. I was really impressed by
Cool.
both films. And then one of my own films that I rewatched that I thought would be a fun recommendation, especially also timely after a remake was just announced, is The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad.
Hmm.
Because damn, Airplane and The Naked Gun are like the like outside of like Mel Brooks spoofs for me. Like these are like the crown jewels of how you spoof a movie and spoof a genre and stuff like that. And like the Naked Gun is so hilarious. Matt, our wonderful Matt of the movie club, who didn't get to join us for this month, he loses it so hard at the human sized condoms. It's like we have to use protection, and they're both in human sized condoms. It's so ridiculous. Leslie Nielsen is the king of being the straight man to nonsense, and it works so perfect. And the fact that they're remaking this with Liam Neeson as Drummond, directed by Akiva from The Lonely Island, and produced by Seth MacFarlane. I'm just like, wow, I'm gonna actually enjoy this. And it's Liam Neeson and Pam Anderson are playing the two leads.
Oh, okay. I haven't thought about Pam Anderson in who knows how long. Probably since Borat.
Yeah. But like the two of them, and then I heard Cody Rhodes got cast in it.
Cody
WWE
Rhodes.
champion Cody Rhodes.
Oh,
And
okay.
because I have a sinking feeling like it might be set at a wrestling match at the end of the movie instead of a baseball game, because Reggie
Okay.
Jackson's the one who's like hypnotized to try to kill the Queen of England. So I imagine Cody Rhodes is gonna be that. Oh
Okay.
my god. And if they don't make a joke about Leslie Nielsen and Liam Neeson, I'm gonna be disappointed.
It's right there.
It's right there. So if you haven't seen the original Naked Gun, it's under 90 minutes. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's stupid. I'm not going to tell you it's not stupid, but it's hilarious. So stupid, but it's hilarious. But that is a wrap here. Welcome to the Wasteland, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on and looking forward to having you for a couple more episodes coming up.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.